Hey internet friends! Have you ever witnessed a mirage? Something that appears real or possible, but isn't? It's a term with roots stemming from the French and Latin words mirror and mirar, both meaning to look at. So it's time we look at the mirage of the desert, the consequences and effects of which have transcended borders and time zones. And while the leadership is part of the illusion, the real deception lies in downplaying the reality and distorting the truth about this kingdom. That's why today we're going to cover what the media won't tell us about Saudi Arabia, the only country on earth named after a family, the House of Saud. While public beheadings, mistreatment of women, and backdoor deals with politicians are amongst the practices that come to mind when discussing Saudi Arabia, we'll begin with what they're most known for nowadays: oil money. Pre-Islam, the Arabian Peninsula served as a conduit for trade, consisting of various civilizations along major rivers and nomadic tribes who feuded amongst themselves. But after the spread of Islam, there was a struggle for control over the Arabian Peninsula, giving emergence to the Saudi dynasty in Central Arabia in 1744, when tribal ruler Muhammad ibn Saud joined forces with religious leader Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, the founder of the modern Wahhabi movement. And while this new movement was just getting started, the mighty Ottoman Empire was nearing its end. The Ottomans threatened Central Arabia, already having seized Islam's holiest sites, Medina and Mecca. And by 1908, the Turks had built a railway between Damascus and Medina. But all this took a sharp turn when the British got involved. The railway was destroyed with the help of British military officer T. Lawrence during World War I, as depicted in the film Lawrence of Arabia. Essentially, the British armed and funded a small group of radical Islamists during World War I to fight their common enemy at the time, the Ottomans.
They won't be coming for money, not the best of them. They'll be coming for Damascus, which I'm going to give them.
You can tell the politicians to burn their bit of paper now.
Fair enough.
Fair? What's fair got to do with it?
And that's not all the British were up to, not according to Iraqi intelligence documents that were released by the United States Department of Defense in 2002, including a report entitled The Emergence of Wahhabism and Its Historical Roots, that details a British spy's travels to the Middle East around the mid-18th century, meeting up with Abdul Wahhab and planning to create a brand of fake Islam that would later be known as Wahhabism, designed to undermine traditional Islam so the British could have a foothold on the Arab world. Essentially, this report suggests that Wahhabism was created to divide and conquer the Muslim world, and Wahhabism became the foundation of the Saudi regime, a regime built from a violent tribe that has, and continues to this day, murder rival tribes. The report specifically states that both Abdul Wahhab and his sponsor Ibn Saud were of Jewish origin, with Abdul Wahhab being a descendant of a Jewish tribe from Turkey. Plot twist, right? Throughout the past century, these claims have been reiterated by neighboring rulers, and reportedly even a Saudi Arabian ruler, King Faisal, who ruled between 1964 and 1975. He was reported to have told the Washington Post on September 17th of 1969 that we, the Saudi family, are cousins of the Jews. That's interesting, right? Also interesting is that the British, the same folks who paved the way for the establishment of the State of Israel, also helped pave the way for recapturing Medina and Mecca from the Ottoman Empire, as well as uniting regions of Arabia under the banner of one state, Saudi Arabia, which was founded in 1932. The same year, the Saudis signed a deal with the Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company, and oil production began under the U.S.-controlled Arabian American Oil Company. And this is how one of the most important alliances with the United States came to fruition, and where the starting point for Saudi Arabia's vast wealth began. So why is Saudi Arabia such an important ally to the West? Saudi Arabia serves as an illusion upon which Western leaders can claim deniability. The Saudis, or the Saudi-funded rebels, wage war and murder enemies of the West, while spreading their particular brand of radical Islam. This happened while the Soviets were in Afghanistan in 1979, and it continues to happen with the Saudis funding Syrian rebels, while Russia aids Assad And ultimately, with Saudis funding these rebels, they are taking aim at one of Russia's last remaining allies in the Middle East. And in return for doing the West's bidding, Saudi Arabia receives more arms deals. Thus, centrally located Saudi Arabia continues to serve as the doorstopper for whatever backdoor war the West chooses to wage.
This footage was taken during a protest in June by women in Saudi Arabia campaigning for the right to drive. But it seems the government's cracking down. One protester has been sentenced to 10 lashes with a whip, the first time the courts have handed down a sentence on a woman for driving.
Yemeni army troops have helped defend the country against the Saudi aggression, as international rights groups have urged Western states, particularly America and Britain, to halt their military support for the attacks.
Presently, it appears that the West is waging a war against Iran, and therefore Russia. The Saudi royal family is on board since tensions between Saudi Arabia and Iran are high, and have been in recent times since 1979, when gunmen seized the holiest site of Islam, the Grand Mosque in Mecca. These gunmen were thought to be militants from Iran, calling for the overthrow of the House of Saud. However, Iran's leader at the time accused the US and Israel as the masterminds behind the plot. Sound familiar? Regardless of who was responsible, the tensions with Iran continue to this day, and even right now, the Saudis are fighting a battle with Iran in Yemen. This is a battle the news is reluctant to tell us about and is overshadowed by coverage of the war in Syria. Yemen's civil war occurred as a result of the Arab Spring. The transition from one leader to the next resulted in failure, with unemployment at an all-time high in an already very poor country, as well as food shortages, terrorism, and of course, rival movements that created the perfect conditions for civil war. As we've seen in Syria, civil war creates a power vacuum, or opportunities for outside forces to intervene. And fearing that Iran was going to do just that, Saudi Arabia allied with other countries to start a military campaign that hasn't affected the Iranian-backed Yemen rebels as much as the civilians, with over 10,000 people murdered since 2014, with Saudi airstrikes on rebel-held territories destroying marketplaces, hospitals, and schools. And all of this activity has forced 3 million people to up and leave their homes, triggering a massive humanitarian crisis, all being aided by those who support and supply Saudi's military, like the United States. In recent years, Saudi Arabia has bought more arms from the United States than any other country in the world. The US is giving Saudi Arabia record arms, but so is Canada, and so is the UK. So much for that whole war on terrorism and keeping the world safe by selling weapons to the biggest funder of terrorism and violators of human rights in the world. I guess our morally bankrupt political leaders have it figured out. With Yemen serving as the perfect chessboard for a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran for control over the region, there is no room for fairness or decency. After all, once everyone is dead in Yemen, we'll stop hearing about this pesky humanitarian crisis.
There is something common between the state of Saudi Arabia and the state of Israel which would surprise you. They are sisters.
The fact that Israel and Saudi Arabia work together tells you that ISIS more realistically stands for Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. The agenda of ISIS does nothing but exacerbate the already draconian laws that exist in the West. It is an intended agenda of taking more rights away from the people, instilling more power into these corrupt governments in the West, which are never-endingly falsifying information in order to justify one war, one boogeyman after another. So the Israeli-Saudi relationship could hardly be any more intimate. These two are in bed and have been in bed for a long time.
So what is this grand illusion I keep bringing up? With the House of Saud known for their underground gambling, drinking, murderous activities, homosexual promiscuity, wearing of gold rings, and dyeing of beards, all practices forbade by the ideology with which they rule in tandem, it poses the question on whether these folks are even drinking the Kool-Aid they're serving up. Is Islam their actual religion? With modern Saudi Arabia controlling Islam's holiest sites, as well as being caretakers of those sites, collecting the fee when Muslims want to pay a visit, there is a direct parallel between the House of Saud and the Vatican. the caretakers of the Roman Catholic Church, who also had their fair share of atrocities and sexual scandals. So is Saudi Arabia the Islamic Vatican state? The news will tell you, in perhaps rushed sentences, that Saudi Arabia is funding terrorism, the same thing that Saudi Arabia is currently claiming to threaten Qatar over. Maybe the media will allude to facts like it's illegal for women to drive in Saudi Arabia. Religious freedom does not exist there, and Saudi civilians can and will be sentenced to death for denying Islam or speaking out against their government. Our media might even throw us a bone with the U.S. House of Representatives vote, allowing families of 9/11 victims to sue Saudi Arabia's government for damages, but that doesn't stop our government from selling arms to them year after year. The more brutality Saudi Arabia commits, the more arms they receive. The media might imply that the House of Saud's transfer of power from one leader to the next is like something cooked up out of the Game of Thrones books, but what the media will certainly never tell you about the House of Saud, the protectors of the birthplace of Islam, is that they aren't even really Arab Muslims. They're a death cult who got their start by waging war on their brothers. The Ottoman Turks, once pagan Khazars of ancient Turkey who made a half conversion to Judaism but had no biblical or genetic links to the 12 tribes of Israel, yet to this day continue to feud over land to which they feel they hold a right, all the while leaving a trail of death and destruction in their wake. And as long as the United States education system continues to decline, creating an environment in which individuals lap up propaganda like milk, and distractions are as plentiful as apathetic attitudes, the truth will remain hidden, and the illusion will persist. What do you think, internet friends? What's your opinion on the House of Saud? I always look forward to your comments. Thank you so much for subscribing and supporting my channel on Patreon. Bye!